Hi there, my name is Kay Moon and I'm a Western astrologer and twin flame channel, and this is a video about the full moon in Leo taking place on February 12th at 8:53 a.m. If you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States, definitely check a time zone converter for your local time. Really exciting full moon that we have here. This will be the Valentine's Day full moon for those who celebrate that. And it's got some very interesting energy that's really about shaking things loose, moving into next chapters, stepping into elevation, cleaning up the past, and releasing ourselves from ties that have bound us. So I like to see it, especially when it comes to things like love and money, because there's huge opportunities here for fresh new beginnings and also opportunities for closure and completion where things have just been misaligned. Of course, it's going to be up to us to use the energy in that way. A few quick announcements. The Union Workshop is going to close its doors on Thursday. So, the last chance to grab your seat for this 10-week workshop and community to create your union is now. There's details in the description box below and also in the community section of the YouTube channel. Number two, there is one hour session left this Friday or two half-hour sessions left this Friday for reading if you're in need of guidance for the new year. We're already now in both the shadow of the Venus and the Juno retrograde, so if there's been dust kicked up in the areas of love, money, values, commitment, the answers for that are going to be in your chart and help you know what to do for the highest good of all involved. Just want to say thank you so much for the likes. Shout out to the intro crew who likes to listen to these introductions. I so appreciate you. Thank you for subscribing to the channel if you're new. All of that helps the channel grow and reach the people who need it most when they need it most. And lastly, but not leastly, the first look component is now at the end of the All Signs Lunar Update. So if you want a sneak peek at the way this energy will move into the new moon in Pisces in a couple of weeks, definitely join me next weekend where we'll have a look at that. But for now, let's get into this full moon in Leo taking place here at the 24th degree of our sign that governs sovereignty, creativity, and manifestation. Because this full moon is going to be square to Uranus in Taurus, there is a huge underlying theme of surprises, unpredictability, instability, uncertainty unfolding. And it's supposed to be that way. If it feels like the ground is shifting and shaking underneath you, things that used to be steady, stable, and secure and reliable don't feel like they are that way anymore. It is because we've stepped into a new era with more newness to come as we get past the middle of the year and all of the major outer planets stepping into brand new signs. The world is going to continue to shape shift. We need to be prepared to do the same for ourselves. This Uranian square to this new moon is making this a more potent, sorry, not new, full moon. This Uranian square to this full moon is making this a potent lunation for closures and completions that support our stepping into our next level. We see as well an opposition to Mercury conjunct Ceres, Sun, and Chariklo here in Aquarius, right there. So I highlight that for you. This can make for challenges balancing emotions and mind when Mercury mind is opposite moon emotions. It can also make for some challenges in communication as we seesaw between intense emotional feeling and also feeling intensely analytical and perhaps even detached, because both can feel equally strong, but at odds with one another in the opposition, Mercury and Moon, it can create this intensity, this restlessness, this inner agitation, especially if you are prone to things like unstable moods, emotional swings. This is a great time to do whatever you need to do to regulate your nervous system. If you take medication for that, definitely stay consistent, or supplements for that, definitely stay consistent with whatever your doctor doctor has prescribed for you to support stabilization while we go through this new moon that is full of surprises, unpredictability, uncertainty, and change. Okay. There is a warning here, or an invitation here, I guess I should say, to stay mindful as well with communication, as this inner agitation can cause words to come out in unintended ways, especially with Uranus in square to both. We call this a T square here. When we see the planets line up and formulate a T by their angles, in order to manage the tension of the T square, there is an opportunity to lean into the energy that is conspicuous in omission, but we see here that there is no omission here. Juno occupies those late degrees of Scorpio, calling in a Grand Cross energy. And this only creates greater tension when it comes specifically to partnerships, commitments, circumstances that require contracts or agreements and equal partnerships. So expect that sort of tension to bubble up at this time. It's meant to facilitate change in our lives, change in the configuration of these agreements and partnerships, because things are not supposed to stay the same. They are meant to evolve. And the evolving energy and entity here is definitely Uranus. That's part of what it represents. But in this process, as I mentioned, there can be some communication that comes out slightly sideways. Um, Stay open, give yourself and others some grace with this. Definitely check for intention. You know, I heard X, is that what you meant? Because some of the communication, once things are said, they can't be unheard no matter how many times you apologize. And so these sorts, like communications that unfold at this time, if they are not handled with care and grace by both parties, the receiving and the speaking party, this is the kind of communication that can actually burn a lot of bridges. So, something to keep in mind. With this Mercury series and Sun opposite the moon in this way, the square to Uranus, there can also be an inner sense of confusion and chaos stimulated by the things that we see or hear externally that can be projected outwards at this full moon. In particular, because Leo is shadow side of Leo can have a lot of self-righteousness to it. I'm not saying Leos are self-righteous people. I'm saying when in shadow, an abundance of Leo energy can come out this way. Certainly other signs as well, Aries and Sag included, Virgo and Cap as well. I mean, all signs can, but this particular full moon speaks to the Leonine energy, where if we are feeling insecure, we can double down on our thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and opinions and come off as self righteous to other people about what other people should be doing or not, what they should be thinking or not, what they should be saying or not. So just be mindful of what gets stirred up in you and its message for you, because it will be a knee jerk reaction to take the inner impetus to change that this full moon stirs up, that's happening in response to external stimuli, and then lash out at other people instead of doing the inner change work at this moment that this moment demands of us. Now, this combination gives us the opportunity as well to move toward a life that's more enriching and fulfilling. I want to acknowledge that last year was an unprecedented year for global elections. That no matter where you're listening from in the world we live in today, it may be very different from the world as we knew it pre-2024. So the definition and vision of an enriching and fulfilling life may have shifted for you already or be in the process of shifting. The agitation and shaking up of this full moon, it is working to loosen us from former visions and definitions of an enriching and fulfilling life so that we can wake up and participate in our new vision, embrace the new vision, and get to work on the new vision. The phrase, the only person we can truly change is ourselves, certainly applies very heavily with this full moon. Ceres is going to add an energy of closure here. Again, grace with people, this energy, if I look at it from a certain perspective or vantage point, I've certainly heard stories about this already, and we're not even like there yet with it. We're 10 days out at the time of this recording with this full moon, like the sort of like, I quit, like storming off in a huff, only to, come poking back tomorrow with I don't know if I meant that. I was just upset. Um, so it's really important to just have some grace, grace for yourself, grace for other people. Not everyone can manage, is listening to updates like this, getting the heads up early and having the awareness to walk into a full moon like this, knowing that people just may not be at their best depending upon their relationship to change. Not all of us thrive in change. Some of us do. But not everyone does. And when things change, sometimes people do unusual things out of discomfort. And so that grace will go a long way here. Chericlo here, also in Aquarius, she is going to bless new steps taken at this time and meet you more than halfway with open doors, opportunities, friends, and colleagues that can help you. And it's going to be important overall to use the energy of this full moon consciously and intentionally, because we're going to see some people who, unfortunately, they'll get used by this energy instead. Um, as I mentioned, there's some communication here with Juno as well. Themes around alliances and partnerships can show up at this full moon. The full moons are always closures. Scorpio is also the sign that deals with closure. Scorpio is where Juno sits. Juno represents partnership. So we may see some partnerships close or complete here, especially as she is also in communication with Pluto by sextile and Ceres by square. Both Pluto and Ceres amplify Juno's closure, completion, and ending energy as she sits in the sign of closures, completions, and endings. Does look like it can be an amicable closure, just time to move forward, as both may be called in new directions, even if the conscious mind doesn't really understand why. So there's a gentle reminder here that closures can happen without blowups, without anger, without either person doing something wrong. Closures can be like graduations or like wrapping up fall and moving into winter or wrapping up a project you've worked on, where it's just time for two people to move on to their next thing. We don't have to burn bridges to cross them and stay across them. We also don't have to slam doors in order to close them. The other influences here may cause people to want to give someone a good talking to or a good piece of their mind with some words that cannot be unheard once they've been said. So, again, be mindful of what gets said, how you say it, as closures can occur around this full moon that may have been unintentional. It's always a gift to be able to create divine closure and divine completion with love and appreciation, or at least in an atmosphere of peace, since releasing an attachment can be hard for our human selves. Now, an alternative interpretation here with Juno speaking in square to this full moon and these other energies is that there can be secret alliances formed here that have a lot of stick and stay power, given that Juno is also trine to Saturn and Nessus here. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of that later on. This full moon also showcases or features a trine to Chiron and Eris here in the sign of Aries, the sign of the self, motivation, and ambition. This amplifies and solidifies the already mentioned messages, as communication from the full moon to Chiron and Eris can bring up some difficult feelings about self that are easy to take out on others. Now, in the light, this will be about coming into guidance, leadership, teaching, and healing healing for others at this full moon who may be going through some of what was just mentioned. You may have already grown through some of these things and can serve as a way shower for people, but in shadow, bitterness and resentment over rejection or abandonment can get triggered by experiences external to you at this full moon and cause us to withdraw, shut down, turn inward, or take self destructive actions. Both Leo and Aries deal with the self in different ways, and so it will be really important to pay attention I may be having difficult or hard feelings, but I don't have to treat myself in difficult or hard ways. I can be kind to myself. I can be gentle with myself. I can be compassionate with myself. And it'll be important to put our own oxygen mask on first when it comes to that before trying to correct, criticize other people, that kind of thing. Signs who are going to feel this full moon the most certainly include the fire signs, Leo, Aries, and Sagittarius, and the fixed signs, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Taurus, especially those born in the second half of their sign with a late degree sun, moon, rising, or stellium in any of those signs. So definitely pay attention if that's you. All right. If you need some help working through some of this energy, there's definitely room in my calendar before this particular full moon. We can look at how this is going to play out in your chart. And there's also room in my calendar just after this full moon so we can see how to work with the energy that did come up and what you can do with it after this so that you're not just at the mercy of these energies getting pushed around. Link to book is just below this video in the description box. I'm over at kmoonastro.com. But there are some energies here that make this full moon, in particular, a potent full moon around love and relationships. And I want to get into some of that now with Venus and Aries at that 5th degree. She is conjunct Neptune in Pisces and preparing to go retrograde. She entered the shadow on January 28th for her retrograde this year. Venus retrograde's notorious for having us redo, revisit, rethink things in love and or money. Sometimes people end up needing to redo certain things having to do with beauty treatments. Definitely not recommended during a Venus retrograde to get new beauty treatments or new home beautification processes. Definitely recommended to wait until after the Venus retrograde. But if you need to redo things, you can certainly redo things, and it's a great time to revisit, redo beautification projects, home or body. But where it comes to love and money, this is certainly an opportunity and a time where we could see the beginning of the themes that will be very pertinent during the Venus retrograde. Quick word of warning around this. Many people get very concerned about breakups during Venus retrograde. It's common, but it is not, they don't always stick. And what I'll say about that is Venus retrogrades are periods of time that will showcase where the bonds between two people need strengthening in order for the relationship to work. And so if breakups occur, it's the invitation to step into what about this bond needs to be reshaped in order for both of us to feel strong here. Okay. This is also sometimes why, because Venus represents bonds, connections, she represents attachments, attractions. This is also why sometimes during Venus retrograde, people can go digging around in the past. You could go creeping on your ex's profile. They could slide into your DMs. Conversation can spark. And before you know it, both people are wondering, why did we break up in the first place? If there are attachments, attractions, bonds that never fully broke in the past and it's still there, A Venus retrograde can absolutely bring that back into the present for further examination for both people to see if the good can actually outweigh the bad, to see if through growth and time, two people can come together and create win win collaboration in a way that allows two people to still be together. So, lots of opportunities here when it comes to taking the Venus retrograde and the superficial circumstance, which is, oh, someone came back, or oh, we broke up, and look deeper. It's not about what's happening on the surface. It's about what is Venus trying to reveal in terms of values. That's Venus. Chemistry and attraction. That's Venus. Connection. That's Venus. And how can we be on the same page in a more elevated way? So that's the quick Venus retrograde overview. I did do a deep dive on Venus retrograde with Allie of Allie's Tarot. If you want to check that out, put in key dates, things to look out for, all of that inside that live that is over on her channel. If you're here from that channel, welcome. Love to have you. So much fun to collab with her. Okay. Because Venus is conjunct Neptune as she is starting off this retrograde. This is going to be a key feature of the Venus retrograde. She'll meet up with Neptune 3 times. She's already met 1 time while she was in shadow on February 1st. We are seeing the themes and challenges that we'll need to face during the Venus retrograde with regard to love, money, values, chemistry, attraction, all of that already. Like I said, she went into shadow on January 28th. Those themes tend to present themselves during the shadow period and then need work during the retrograde. Venus and Neptune in communication can bring in higher level love, deep spiritual connection. For some, dreams of past loved ones or exes can become very active now, as well as rumination or meditative moments, since Pisces, the sign she's in, governs the dream state and intuition. This can also make intuitive hits and downloads run at an all time high during the entirety of the Venus retrograde. But certainly, the closer Venus is to Neptune, and the key dates for that are February 1st, which is the day after this recording. This recording is February 2nd, so February 1st, March 27th, May 2nd. Those 3 dates is when we're going to see, or when we're going to see this energy be at an all-time high. So it's a nice long period where we'll get to marinate with this energy in the first half of this year. Now, because Venus conjunct Neptune is linked to a retrograde, and retrogrades are a chance to revisit and redo the past, while some signs are more likely than others to have an encounter with an ex. I definitely covered which signs, I believe, when I was speaking with Allie's Tarot. All signs are encouraged to use the energy to clean up ties with the past, complete a pattern, release an emotional attachment, clean out the spiritual closet concerning old love patterns or people or old financial patterns and attachments to make room for new as we get into the second half of this year and beyond. So you may not necessarily be dealing with a person in the material realm, but if they're showing up in your dreams or in your heart or on your mind, there may be some internal work to do to clean things up there. Now, there will be key contacts Venus will make with Uranus as well. As she goes through her retrograde, she'll get back into Pisces. She already met with Uranus at one point. There, the sextile between Venus and Pisces, speaking to Uranus in Taurus throughout this process, will help with insight and motivation to move forward in both areas that may seem to come out of the blue. And we'll talk about those as we go along. I definitely have spoken about them. I believe at the last new moon and full moon, we had that Venusian contact with Uranus. This transit induces a desire, the Neptune Venus transit, it does induce and evoke a desire for some relaxation, some peace, some ease, some release. And it's a wonderful time leading up to this particular full moon for self-care treatments that restore your vitality, increase your life force, especially given the intensity of the full moon period itself. It's a really good time leading up to it to just renew your reserves and focus on what you can actually impact, and also leading up to it, to mind your business is also indicated here because as so many feel stirred to take this full moon energy external and project it onto other people, there will be a lot that demands our attention, but a smaller scope of things that we can actually control or even do something about. And so, really paying attention, like, where can I control my controllables? Which fire is actually mine to put out? And where do I need to leave other people to be accountable for their own situation? This sort of thing is going to assist you with the maturing of your own boundaries and other people with the maturing of their boundaries, which is absolutely a theme with Saturn speaking to Juno at this time. Okay. And a key theme of that Juno retrograde that's also coming up. If you're guided leading up to this full moon to self soothe, self regulate, enhance or indulge in beauty and art around you to calm your senses and enhance your well being, know that this is divinely guided because the closer we get to this full moon, the more the intensity is going to ramp up. Now, for a few, this configuration will force you to face some more challenging truths in the absence of what you want about the desires of your heart. There could be a sense of a lack of funds or a lack of love being present, but that's okay. What you need will be there, and it will deepen your capacity to connect with your inner guidance about unconditional love and the unconditional resources of the spirit. So, if there's anything in the material world that feels lacking, use this as an opportunity to deepen your connection to your higher self and its connection to all that is God within and God without. Okay. Now, we also see Venus and Neptune there, sextiling our friend Pluto and Pallas there. This is going to heighten the last interpretation I provided for Venus speaking to Neptune, where a deep sense of love and connection can show up at this time. Love can intensify here, whether you're with someone or apart from someone you love, a sense of pressure to experience and share passionate, deep love can really show itself with this energy. While new love is not necessarily indicated with this full moon, if it should show up, it does look intense, it looks life changing, and definitely any one off love encounters will hold that energetic signature as well. For others, you can utilize this configuration and express it as activist energy. And you may feel inspired to connect with a group of people who are doing something aligned with your values sociopolitically, with Pluto in the sign that governs unions and collectives. This is a 20-year stay for Pluto that is going to restore power to people after there was a power consolidation with Pluto in the sign of Capricorn among big corporate entities and institutions. Now that Pluto is in the sign that deals with collectives and unions and groups and the people, so to speak, power is going to get restored to the people over these next 20 years. With Venus speaking to Pluto at this particular full moon, though, there's an opportunity to utilize this energy to support or engage at the local level with change making. And this full moon is a great time to get involved in that way. Even if you aren't necessarily feeling guided in that way normally, heading to a local meeting for a cause that matters to you is a great way to use this energy if it's showing up as an intense longing for something or someone that's not available in the material realm. You can channel that energy productively by standing in service or solidarity with a group that needs support that is near and dear to your heart and reflects your personal values, since Venus is all about values. Okay. Now, this configuration also speaks to some soul shaking, earth rattling, intimate, and physical encounters with lots of spiritual intensity and depth as well. Again, there is an indication of some secret love affairs and hookups unfolding. Deep, passionate, soul shaking, life changing love making can be happening both for those in connection and for those seeking connection at this time. So, have fun, be safe, right? That's all I want to say. Have fun and be safe, kids. There is a square to Pholus, which amplifies the be safe part of my message, though, because this can open the door to some unintended consequences for those in the one-off encounter category. So make sure if you're having random hookups, you're taking necessary precautions and doing so safely. I do not see pregnancy, but I do see a higher propensity at this time for STIs. And certainly, if you're having substance induced fun, I feel really guided to mention something about that. Um, be a little bit extra cautious at this time because there is definitely indication here that uh, sex and drugs just don't mix. Let's just put it like that. It doesn't look like it goes very well at this particular full moon. So take care of yourself, guys. Take care of yourselves. All right, we see Venus also opposite an energy here called Make Make in Libra. We get some hard won lessons in love and connection about being ourselves with this. Valuing ourselves can show up now and remind you of the value of honoring who you are when you're connected to other people. Now, this will show itself as part of the review period mentioned above with the pre-shadow of Venus retrograde. For some, this will be in your interactions with people. For others, this will be in your reflections on past interactions as you prepare to clear the decks in one area of love and open the pathway in another area. This is an important period of processing and digesting that'll help us release what needs to be released and keep the lesson as we need to enhance who we are. And so, again, there is a little bit of a theme here with this particular Venus retrograde of overall review, closing big chapters, big cycles, big patterns in love. It may have nothing to do with a person and more to do with yourself, since Venus will start her retrograde in the sign of the self. Things you've learned, ways you want to grow, things you'll never forget, and things it's time to just put down and let go of. Okay. This is ultimately can leave us with a sense of feeling like the only way a relationship can play out with Venus opposite Make Make and Libra, there can be a sense here that the only way a relationship can work is if you dishonor yourself or value yourself, or you may hear somebody say that to you. This is going to open up a choice point around how do you negotiate with people who do not understand your value, or how do you value yourself when other people don't seem to get what you bring to the table. Okay, so the Venus retrograde will definitely host some of these themes as well. Certainly, the tail end of the Venus retrograde when she comes out of shadow, that's going to be an important time period as well. Out in the May-June timeframe, Venus will oppose Make Make again, and then invite us to take a look at, okay, I may need to reshape expectations or agreements to value myself properly. Okay, now here we go. Next, we see Venus conjunct Neptune, sextile Jupiter there in Gemini. This configuration is going to be our saving grace. OMG, I love this for us. It's going to open up opportunities for growth both in money and in love. Now, It helps people get along, which is that grace thing that I mentioned earlier. It can also smooth out rough edges between people by creating open minds and open hearts. Like, maybe they didn't mean what they just said. Let me give them a chance to clarify and maybe say that in a better way. And the potential for open communication with Jupiter in communication sign Gemini. There is an energy of red carpet just kind of rolling out for you, or just being in the right place at the right time to receive a blessing, or doors opening that may have previously been closed with Jupiter sextile Venus, Venus sextile Jupiter in this way. And this can be especially true with love or money, but definitely with anything you value or desire at this time. It's going to be great to utilize this energy to put yourself forward for anything that elevates your status or value, like a promotion at work or a new visibility project in your business. It can also help people give one another the benefit of the doubt, and that includes you giving yourself the benefit of the doubt. Always a good idea to where there are a lot of unknowns, start with assuming good intent. Maybe they didn't mean to hurt you, but sometimes the message sent and the message received, they aren't always aligned. So, grace, communication, Jupiter is in communication sign Gemini, can go a long way. Um, Okay, along those lines, any class, course, workshop, or travel you take for personal development is also favored here since Jupiter is in the sign that deals with classes, courses, workshops, and travel. It does look like whatever you learn does elevate the quality of your life and who you are as a person on the whole. This energy can make us talkative, it can make us social. The desire to share, connect, and bond will be very high here. It's a great energy for communities and self expression. This energy also opens the door for opportunity to find you. So, whatever you've been trying to create in your life, pay attention now because this energy will bring in opportunities to facilitate that outcome. I'm just going to drop a shameless plug here for the Union Workshop. For those of you trying to create love, who need community and need to learn some things about investing in union instead of investing in separation, link to enroll is below the video. Doors close in 4 days, depending upon when you listen to this message. They close on February 6th, so do not hesitate, delay, or wait. Act now if that's something you know you feel like you need. Let's talk about Mars retrograde. Mars has been retrograde over here in Cancer. Um, and this has been a potent energy for us since last year. This has given us all a time to correct actions that have not been aligned with our emotional integrity and truth, where we have been operating in opposition to how we really feel. This Mars retrograde draws us inward to have a look at why are we doing that? What's the truth behind that? And make the necessary corrections in order to get into alignment behaviorally. This Mars retrograde is also opening the door for taking aligned action, and specifically action aligned with our emotional truth. Where we have been doing things for the look of it, because we're supposed to, because we're expected to, we will find the energy to do that at this time is not available. In particular, Scorpios and Aries out here may feel low energy as Mars is your ruling planet. But definitely pay attention if it's more than just low energy, more than just procrastination, and your higher self trying to reveal to you this is actually misalignment, and it's time to take action in a different area or to close this down. Now, this continues until Mars goes direct, which is so close, February 23rd. But this is an important period to pay attention to where we are truly invested in terms of our actions and where we are not, so that we can make the necessary changes in the Mars retrograde post shadow period. Okay. We see Mars in sextile to Uranus here in Taurus, the sign of our values. The divine change maker is shaking it up. This will evoke some inspired action, action that's driven by the inspiration to do it at the right time and the right place with the right people to get the best results for all involved. You may get the impulse to just do it when it comes to things that you've put off that you know need to be either redone or addressed or rectified during this Mars retrograde, especially in areas of your chart that Mars governs, your Scorpio and Aries houses. This is a restless energy, but in a good way. There's this old saying that my grandmas from the South would always say, idle hands are the devil's playground. Now, in a modern day terms and context, the impetus to just do something and anything will be high to just discharge this restless, roaming electric energy in us. But to use this energy to avoid what needs to be done or ignore what needs to be done will add to the restlessness, the irritation, the agitation, the upset, can even lend itself to some depression. So it's really critical to not repress this energy and confront what needs to be done here in your life. The shadow period of the Mars retrograde would have revealed to you what your work is, and that was back in October of 2024 through December 6th of 2024. This contact with Uranus will give us all some motivation to giddy up and get going. So if it's 3 a.m. and that wild impetus hits you to clean out that closet, just do it. If it's your day off, but the urge hits you to handle your taxes, just do it. If you're sitting at work and get that urge to call that lawyer to deal with that thing, just do it. You get the idea. It may hit you randomly, spontaneously, unpredictably. Thank you, Uranus. And when it does, if it's for your higher good, this energy is operating as wind at your back to help you get to the next level. Take advantage of this. Even if it's not perfectly timed, take advantage. Trust the divine timing. Now, for some, this is going to overlap with the impending Venus and Juno retrograde energy. That's about reviews and redos in love in particular. And it may be that part of this for some is about that impetus to reach out to another person, make things right, see if the door's still open, see if love can still land. Again, I say and keep saying it, you're going to have to approach it from a completely new place for it to go in a new direction and not repeat a cycle. And you can do this by thinking in a new way, expecting new things, behaving in new ways, showing up as a new person yourself. It's very easy to forget that expectations become reality in this realm. So we can avoid negative self fulfilling prophecies by showing up new ourselves. Now, overall, this Mars retrograde in Cancer, sextile Uranus and Taurus energy is going to be very stimulating to the heart chakra and the sacral chakra, as well as some of the other energies at this particular full moon. And it will help us to bring body and head into alignment and union with the vision we have for our lives. So pay attention when that shows itself, these sort of, I'm drawn to be over here, not over there. Pay attention. If there's a party that just doesn't want to do something, but does want to do something else, pay attention. These planets are really trying to get you aligned with a higher level timeline for your life. We also see Mars, our friend here, is having a conversation with Chiron and Eris over there in Aries, just like the full moon. This combo needs to be managed very carefully. Now, on the one hand, we see all the ways we may have counted ourselves out, self-excluded, self-abandoned, self-rejected. We may also have seen how others have underestimated or discounted us. And at this particular full moon, we may have some feeling inspired action about this. uh, just be mindful. Sometimes acting out in certain ways, once it's done, you can't take certain things back. You can apologize, but things can't necessarily go back to the way they were before you did it. So give yourself grace, but also give yourself pause. Sometimes that is the grace we need. It's just to take a beat before we say and do stuff that may undermine our true intentions. Now, on the other hand, that action can be, like I mentioned, not aligned, could be a little self-pity, a little acting out, a lot of placing blame. You may see this both in yourself or in others around you who want you to be responsible for why they are where they are in their life. Mm. If that happens, you don't always have to respond because you're not responsible. Just because somebody lays responsibility at your feet, it doesn't make you responsible for their situation. So keep that in mind. Everyone has their own sovereignty here. Everyone is endowed with the same capacity and power to act in their lives. Some people use it, some people lose it, only to regain it later. So just be mindful of that because people can kind of go left here, but you don't have to because you're getting the heads up. But going back to the light in this configuration, there is an opportunity to see any feelings or thoughts of rejection or abandonment or low self-worth and being left out and actually take an action that allows us to honor ourselves at this full moon. Before we get there, though, there could be a rendezvous with some real tender feelings. So it will be important to give yourself some compassion, be self considerate with which action you decide to take. Again, the peaceful pause will really go a long way before choosing to react or respond to, again, people who don't know how to handle this energy in productive ways for themselves. Okay, let's talk about Mars trine Saturn and Nessus in Pisces. This is one of my favorite astrological aspects of our all time. I love Mars and Saturn in communication because it ups the productivity levels for all of us collectively. It gives us motivation, ambition, drive, and most importantly, the discipline to get things done. With Mars retrograde, this is ultimately about doing things that we've procrastinated on, things that need to be redone, or doing things with some caution, care, and precision. Again, with this, there is more activist energy here where passion and purpose can collide when it comes to taking aligned action. This is a great energy to use to get your life in order. And if your life is already in order, to volunteer or help others do the same. Again, with this, there is a bit of sacral chakra activation. I'm going to say maybe a lot for some people that can bring some passionate encounters in the world of physical intimacy, especially because uh, those two are talking to Juno here in the sign that deals with physical intimacy. Ooh, spicy times. So, use the energy wisely. And alternatively, this can also provide some passion to move on your creative endeavors toward full completion. So, whatever it is, creatively, business idea, new art project, for my artists out here who are writers, singers, producers, actors, you know, entertainment arts, visual arts. This is the time. Like milk this because this energy is really going to help you with inspiration that very easily translates into action. And I know sometimes those two don't always come at the same time. This energy can also be used for developing tactics and strategy for long-term or big picture projects and plans with huge outcomes in return. So even entrepreneurs, I consider y'all creatives as well. Use this energy to your advantage. Even if it comes at an inconvenient time, trust the creative flow. Make sure you have a way to capture your big ideas, the strategies that come to you. It does look like some of them are going to come through meditative states, dream states, or sleep states, uh, and then spur you into action in your waking state. So, really great opportunity here. Lastly, we see this Mars retrograde speaking in opposition to our old pal Pholus. Now, Pholus was a heavy feature of last year's astrology when it was retrograde square the transiting nodal axis. I think some of that might have been also 2023. And it was part of that was all about identifying toxic patterns and structures and choosing to let them go with some intention, in particular in partnership, because at that time, the South Node was transiting through Libra, our sign of partnership and collaboration. So we could really take toxic energy, throw it down the toilet. With Mars retrograde opposite Pholus in present time, we do have a callback to those lessons as this full moon invites us to continue to let go of the hand that's not of what's not working and leave it in the past or extricate ourselves from those structures in present time. Now, if you missed it last year, this Mars retrograde in loose opposition to Pholus will now make sure you see it, can't unsee it. And Mars speaking to these other planetary energies like Uranus is going to ensure that you also do something about it. Now, because of the opposition, there may be some dalliance here with behaviors that do not serve because they are autopilot behaviors, they're habit. But as long as you can identify what's not working, there is an indication with this full moon and with Uranus speaking to Mars and Chiron speaking to Mars, there's some indication you can break free, even if it's uncomfortable to do so at this full moon. We also see Mars retrograde trying to Vesta there inside of Scorpio. And this amplifies dedication to doing what needs to be done, especially if that's a closure of some sort, because Scorpio specifically is our sign that deals with closure and alchemical change. Vesta's about dedication. Mars retrograde has us reviewing and relooking, and really specifically in Cancer, dealing with emotional alignment. This energy is really speaking quite loudly to if it is not aligned, stop doing it. Find a way to end it so that there's space for what is aligned to come in. Okay. For some of y'all, this is a marriage that's just, y'all have outgrown it. The horse is dead. It's now a skeleton. You're dragging it behind you, trying to give it CPR once in a while. Some of you know, relationship wise, you really do need to utilize this energy to create some closure and completion, especially because this Mars retrograde is talking to Venus and Juno together. Relationships are definitely on the table and up for examination in this energy. So say it with love. It's okay. You will not be left loveless. If you create a completion, if you're guided to create a completion now, new love can be on the way. Okay. Now, we do see a square to Lilith in Libra from this Mars retrograde. I actually almost want to I want to pause for a second and just go back to that because I've seen this happen sometimes with people when I'm reading for them who are stuck or caught in a love triangle of some sort where they're committed over here, body is over here, head is over here, but heart is over there, or heart and head is over there, but body and money is over here. I've seen these planets almost always, without fail, universally and consistently. Anytime there is a period that is indicative of breakup or ending, on the heels of that, there is a period that is divinely designed for new love, new beginning, that brings back what was lost 10x. For us collectively, I see that happening around the August timeframe when we have a Jupiter Venus conjunction. But if you drag your feet now, you might miss it. So when those impetus and emotion, that impetus and those emotions hit that tell you, you know what? It's time for me to shift here. It's time for me to make a change here. I can't stay here. Trust it. The planets have your back. Your higher self knows what it's doing. Give yourself that space and permission to walk your pathway knowing that love won't bring you this far to leave you. I promise you. These planets want you to have what you want, but it's our participation that makes it possible. Okay. All right. So, said what I needed to say. Let me get back into it. We got Mars retrograde square Lilith in Libra here. That's a fun one. After some initial turbulence with this one, there is indication that we'll be able to use this to negotiate win win situations. But the initial turbulence may be about feeling like things are win lose in our connections. In order for them to have their way, I have to give up what I need and want. In order for me to have my way, they have to give up what they need and want. There can be a sense with this that things can only be the other person's way or our way, but that working out a mutually beneficial both and solution is impossible. Now, there are some of you for whom that's going to be true. It is not possible, and you will get the clarity with this full moon that you need among this aspect and all the other aspects that I've talked about to finally create the closure and completion where it's needed. However, there are others of you where this is going to be a period where, because you've grown in your capacity to have what you want in partnership, your inability to leave that off the table are going to cause negotiations with you and another person to take a new direction. And that includes having your heart's desires as well as the other person. Which way things go are going to be a matter of the overall lessons and growth opportunities in your life stream for 2025, right? Now, some of you, this is a season of closure, completion, and ending. Others of you, this is a season of renegotiation. Much of that is going to depend on your chart, your higher self, the desires of your heart, and the design of your life. If you need any support with that, you can always find me over at kmoonastro.com. We can talk about it utilizing your chart and see which direction you're supposed to be moving. When we get closer to the Venus and the Juno retrograde, I know there will be more messages about this. So if you need to kind of just see where things go for now, totally get it. And if you're ready to book now, because you're already starting to have some insights and it's already intense enough, it's a great time to do that. I've mentioned it a lot. Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, they're all in a conversation with one another, shaking up, shape shifting, transforming, and turning upside down our lives as we know it collectively. There is a sense here with these guys that the floor, the ceiling, and the walls are no longer in the place that they were in our lives. Structures that we used to think were solid, ways that we used to think life was supposed to go, things that we thought things were supposed to look like, it doesn't look like that anymore. Things aren't the same. And all of this is happening, transforming our external world while we are simultaneously transforming on a train to a transformed life for ourselves. So if things feel really uncertain and unstable at this time, this is why. This is really a lot of unprecedented change unfolding all at the same time. Give yourself some time, some space, some patience. Answers are forthcoming. Pay attention to the answers that are there inside of your higher self, trying to reveal to you what needs to shift and change for you. Being who we were pre 2023, pre 2020, even is not going to be possible in this energy. This energy is revealing to us a new world. And in order for us to live in it, we also have to be new versions of ourselves. So, with that said, you know where to find me if you need some support. I will be with you at the new and full moons this year to walk you through what to expect and how to work with it next week. And we will look at the all signs for this lunation so that you know what's happening for your individual sun, moon, and rising. And If you don't want to wait, you can certainly book with me and we can talk as early as this Friday or next Friday, depending upon what works for your schedule to see what your chart is showing for you. It's an honor to be here with you. Thank you so much for letting me read for you. Take great care and bye for now.